Hello and welcome to another episode of the Happy Head podcast. I'm your host, Paul, and today I'm pleased and very happy that I've finally been able to pin down Michelle Kuei for a chat. Good morning, Michelle. How are you doing?
Good morning, Paul. It's a privilege to be here.
And yeah, just got to say, you're saying good morning. I should say good evening because you are in Los Angeles area. You're on the west coast of the United States. It's about 9 a.m. there. I'm in the southeast of a dismal grey UK, so it's pitch black 5 p.m. in the evening.
And it's how amazing these internet connection allows us to build that connection. So we can be on different parts of the globe, and here we are having a chat.
Yeah, it's really bizarre. I find it bizarre because when I was a kid, this was science fiction. I used to watch Star Trek, the original one, and they were having these things like communicators and talking to people via video links, and that was actually science fiction. And now it's just people take it as routine. It's just a normal thing to do, and that fascinates me. Going from science fiction to actual fact in the space of one lifetime.
Absolutely, I agree. I totally agree with you. When I was growing up, I remember I had this fantasy of wanting to transport myself to a different location. And here we are, we have the airplane, we have different transportation, and now we have internet that allows us to transport ourselves to a different space.
I've got a question for you, Michelle. In Star Trek, they had this transporter beam where you kind of stand in it, it descends something or other, your molecules, and then you end up on the planet's surface or on another ship, and it rebuilds you again. If such a thing existed, would you use it?
I believe so. I believe I will use it. You know how sometimes you walk through the streets and there's these metal cover plate right on the ground that goes down to the sewage. I can't remember what it's called. There's a term for it. But I used to imagine myself standing on the port, and I would imagine that I'm getting teleported somewhere else.
See, I would use it, but I remember watching a movie with the guy out of the dinosaurs Jurassic Park series, Jeff Goldblum, a movie called The Fly, where they've invented a teleportation system very much like the one in Star Trek, but he's doing his thing, he's teleporting, and a fly, a tiny little thing, comes into the same chamber, and he ends up as kind of like half man, half fly. That would terrify me.
I think that would be so cool. So I'm a total sci-fi person, and I think as we're speaking, what comes to my mind, which movie comes to my mind is the Stargate. I don't know if you've seen that movie. It's
I love
about
it. I love Stargate.
yeah, the Stargate is about how there's it actually teleport people into the old Egyptian time, and there's this whole conspiracy behind how the pyramid was built, and it was in the movie it was implied that it was built by the aliens, right? And I got really drawn into the movie and I watched it over and over because I always had the feeling that a lot of things what's going on in our world, there's somehow a master grand scheme of meaning behind everything, and somebody must have created and designed the whole layout of what we see here in today's world. And so there's that whole theory about how ancient Mayans, how they worked and how they built their temple, and Machu Picchu, the whole entire ancient site is designed, so they called it, by aliens because there's all of that plot, and it's just very fascinating to me. So yeah, I'm a big fan of sci-fi.
One thing's actual science fact is there's a city in Turkey called Göbekli Tepe, I think that's pronunciation, which is more than 12,000 years old. It's in fact the oldest constructed city that they found, and it was deliberately buried, which is fascinating. They've excavated part of it, and they found that the entire city had been deliberately covered over. It's a huge mystery as to why, because around 12,000 years ago, they reckon there was the Great Flood, which is mentioned in a lot of religious texts, like in the Bible, for example. And it's a fact. There was a massive flood around about 12,000 BC. And you know the Sphinx in Egypt, it's like built into a hole. Well, they reckon that the lining of the hole, which people are saying it was how it was dug out, isn't that? It's actually the ripples from the flood marks. Because you know when a river raises, it leaves marks in the bank, and then as it kind of drains down, you see the different marks in there. They reckon that's what it's from. So yeah, prehistory and science fiction, science fact kind of melding into each other is very, very interesting. I mean, I love
Mhm.
the movie The Matrix because
Yes.
it's a lovely kind of metaphor for life. But I read a couple of years ago that there are scientists who are saying that today they cannot say for they cannot prove that we don't actually live in a simulation. There's a book called Existence by a guy
Mhm.
called David Brin, and the whole premise is there was this ancient race of people, the other end of the universe, who wanted to live forever, but that wasn't possible. So they created these spaceships, and in these spaceships they created simulations of themselves, and these things propagate. So they go from kind of occupied planet to occupied planet, and they persuade the occupants to do the same thing.
Mhm.
And the people of Earth figure out what's going on, and the only way they can kind of like escape the evil intentions of this ancient civilization is to fool the ancients that they've done it and that they're now part of the simulation. So yeah, it's really strange the science that's going on right now.
It's so fascinating to me, and it also makes me think about what is it about the afterlife, and because our body would die, but then there's that consciousness that's is beyond our capacity to understand as human. So what happened to the consciousness once we our body had decay or die? Does it continue to live on? Does it belong to somewhere? Does it go somewhere? And what happened afterwards, when we're buried under 6 feet? And I truly believe that we exist in a multi-dimensional sense, one being the physical dimension, and there's another dimension that is beyond the physical realm. So there's that level of consciousness, and there's the ego, and somehow each time we come to this physical world, it's really our evolution of generating a higher level of consciousness. So each time we come back, and I do believe that we reincarnate for whatever the forms or being that we can be, will always come back. And the purpose of coming back is to, again, to evolve around that higher level of consciousness so that we can grow from it. And what is the ultimate end? I can't say that I know, but I know it's there. I have a feeling that it's there.
It's a tough one because for a couple of reasons. First of all, we don't actually know what consciousness is. We know when it's gone because when it's gone, the person is dead. They're inanimate, and they say it's the conscious that animates us, that makes us alive as a living thing, as opposed to a rock.
Mm.
And the other thing is that at the moment we have no way of researching or doing experiments as to what happens after we die. Is the consciousness very much like a battery? You have a little battery and you plug it into yourself. That's your consciousness. And as that battery's draining down, you get older and older and weaker and weaker and weaker. And eventually the juice of the battery runs out and you die.
Mm-hmm.
Is the battery still there, or does it evaporate, or like you say, does it take on some other form? I think this is going to be one of those questions that doesn't get answered for an awful long time until we are able to create some kind of, I was going to say equipment, but that's probably not the right word, some kind of thing that dies and can report back almost, if that makes sense. Because
Mm-hmm.
at the moment, there's no proof that anyone has died and kind of like come back and told us what's going on. People have had near-death experiences where they've been on the operating table in a theatre, and for whatever reason, they've had to have their heart stopped, and they have these memories of being dead, and then they're resuscitating people that are in sort of like grave accidents and such like. But we've not had somebody that's kind of like died of old age and then come back and gone, yeah, I've been there and this is what happens. It's could be one
Wouldn't
of
that be
those.
fascinating for another movie?
It would be fascinating, but I actually think it's one of those questions that will never be answered. It's almost like, well, it shouldn't be answered because it's part of like the next great adventure. I have a very dear friend of mine, and she believes like you do in reincarnation to the extent that we come back to earth again to learn a very specific lesson, one that we haven't learned yet. And this is why we reincarnate to learn lessons that we haven't covered. And then once we've learned all the lessons there are to learn, we then go off to nirvana or heaven or whatever you call it, or to the next plane, if you like. What do you think?
I think that that is true. That's also how I believe in. So everything, all the challenges that we're facing right now, a lot of it has to do with the unresolved lessons that we haven't learned from the last lifetime or from our last life. And here we are. We're seeing that challenge again because it is our opportunity to really master at it. So once you master that skills, once you know how to whether it's, I don't like to use the word coping because I don't believe it's coping. I believe it's something that you work through. It's going through you as a life experience. And as you're going through that life experience, the next time when you come back, you might face a different set of challenge because there are different lessons that was meant for your soul. People don't like to hear the consciousness, then maybe they can refer to the soul. It's our opportunity for our soul. That's how our souls will grow. So you learn these challenges, you learn the lessons behind these challenges. Like personally, I had a lot of challenge in my relationship. So I believe that was my lessons to learn how to make connection, how to build network, how to create that relationship, whether it's intimate relationship or just relationship with another human being. How do I interact with them? What kind of person do I want to show up in this lifetime? That was my lessons that I need to learn. And once I can master that lesson, then I move on to the next one. And to some people, it might seem as a challenge, but that is the whole idea. You evolve, your soul will continuously evolve until to a certain point, maybe, or you just continue to go through that cycle of changes so that your soul can finally be a whole or perfect in the sense that it's pure. I kind of, what comes up to my mind is this white light. And I think a lot of people who come back having near death experience, they come back and they say there's that white light.
Mm.
And I believe that you go back to being that white light because you're pure, you're unconditioned, and nothing really, you're not holding any judgment against anything. And life is just perfect the way it is.
I've got a question for you. How do you know what your question is? As in, if you come back into, you've reincarnated into a new life with a lesson to learn, how do you figure out what the lesson is you're supposed to be learning in this current life?
I think every one of us have that wake up moment. There's a moment of awakening in everyone's life. And people will go through that journey at different pace, different stage of their lives. Some
Mhm.
people have, more of a life experience that allow them to wake up early to what is it that I need to do in this lifetime? What is my purpose? And that big question always evolve around why. Why am I here? What am I doing here? Why do I do certain things the way? And how is it not working for me? So you get into that moment of why. You're trying to understand why. So you start questioning yourself a lot, and you start questioning all the things that's going on around you, all these different sets of beliefs that you started to learn, and then you realize that there's a bigger picture behind your why. And that why is very individualized. It's very different for everyone. And this is why we are all unique. We're all different. And there's a purpose for us to be different, to be unique. Because the world does not exist if we're all look alike, right? That would be like a sci-fi movie where everyone looks the same. We all look like robots. We all have, perfect body, perfect shape. That is not the world that was meant to be. The world was meant to be every single one of us are different, unique, and we all have our different strength and talent. And the purpose of realizing and coming to terms with our strength and talent is so that we can contribute to make this world or to make this whole universe a better place for everyone, including all the being that we don't see out there. It would be a perfect place for everyone. And I think, I believe that is the ultimate goal of having a universe that is in a perfect, harmonious way that all being can coexist and function in a society where there is no judgment. Things are based on there is no violence, there is no injustice, and we're treating everyone as if you are me and I am you.
Okay, I have to question that because if we are here as being reincarnated, and if we are here with lessons to learn, how come there is so much injustice, so much violence going on in the world? If we're all here to learn the lesson, is it because a lot of people don't know about this and aren't looking to learn a lesson, or they don't know what lessons they're looking for, or they're just basically confused and in the wrong place at the wrong time kind of thing? How does it work for those people that aren't looking to grow, be better, to do the best they can, to learn these lessons they've been sent to learn?
So I believe there's three basic fundamental needs every human has. And that is the desire to be safe,
Mhm.
the desire to be in abundance, right? The desire to be able to use their talents, to use their strength. So in a more specific term, it's called the three fundamental human needs. And
Mhm.
those human needs would be number one is that security sense, so that autonomy of individual. Can I decide what I want to decide? And then the second one is the competence of individual. Can I have control? Can I be a master in doing what I do? And then the last one is to have that sense of I can't remember the last one. The last one just skipped my mind. But we all have these three fundamental human needs, and when we interact with each other, we're focusing initially, that lesson is focusing on how can I sustain myself,
Mhm.
right? So if you're invading my space, how can I protect myself so from harm? And there are people who haven't really reached to the state of why do I feel that I need to protect myself? What's going on here? They haven't reached to that awakened state. What they focus on is just that ego self. Me. What's in it for me? How can I protect myself from harm? How can I make sure that I have security, what I need? How can I make sure that I don't have all these fears? So it's all about me. But the lesson learned is that we are bigger than just me. We are bigger than just that thinking mind with our body, right? So the idea is as you go through your journey, you will come to, and this is something that I believe in, everyone will come to a point in their life that they need to wake up. And that
Mhm.
is your awaken moment. When you awaken, then you realize that all the things that you have done in the past are really to fundamentally secure your perimeter so that you can feel safe in your space And that is where your standing ground is for you to grow. Now, some people will take their whole entire lifetime in securing that perimeter, and you might not ever see them reaching to that awakened state. And that is why they come back reincarnated to the next lifetime. They pick up from where they were before, and hopefully the next lifetime, which we don't have anything to prove, yes, right? But my idea is I believe that the next time they come back, they pick up from where they left off, and that becomes their origin of the lessons that they need to learn. And each time they will repeat going through the journey until they wake up in their lifetime, reaching to be able to exercise that full consciousness. And I think every one of us chase something very, it's the same, right? Bottom line is that we all want to be happy. We all want to feel fulfilled. We all want to have that sense of, purpose in our life. We all chase aiming for the same thing, but we have different journey. And because we have different lessons that we need to learn in order to get to happiness, in order to get to fulfillment, in order to get to purpose. Some people travel a little faster, and some people, they may not see it in this lifetime.
Okay, so essentially we're all on the same journey, but at different points on that journey. And a lot of people, even though they might be 40, 50, or 60 or 70 years old, are still relatively young, as in junior, on the journey because they haven't gotten beyond the kind of protecting their territory stage. That be a fair analysis?
Yep, absolutely. So our soul comes in different ages. There's new soul and there's old souls. And I believe I have an old soul. And the reason being, I may look younger, but there's a lot of things that I've gone through that my soul feels, this is the right moment to wake up and this is my purpose. And when I speak, my inner voice is very different when I speak, comparing to someone who's at my same age. They may be, very ambitious about their career. They want to make more money, but for me, I'm content. I'm happy where I am, and I think life is just perfect the way it is. I still have goals. I still have vision that I want to achieve, but is that something that would give me the absolute happiness and enjoyment? No. I look for different things that provide me with the same feeling of happiness and enjoyment. So absolutely, I do believe that there's different layer of our soul. And I think that's why people get frustrated. And, if an old soul come into contact with a new soul who's still focusing on that ego self, that sometimes it may trigger a lot of anger or emotion. Like, what is it that you don't get? Just look around right now, with the politics in America, with all these chaos that's going on, or even just whether to put on the mask or not. There's a lot of debate and controversy, and people get really triggered by them. They become very angry, and that's because different people have different level of consciousness, and they woke up at different time in their journey. So some people may think differently, and other people are still working through their own struggle. If I'm having to face losing my job, and here you are talking to me about that becoming a whole again, become oneness, I can't focus on that. I'm going to focus on my the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? I'm going to focus on what can I bring home to feed my people in my family. So there's no time or space to think about that we are in this as one. It's more about them thinking about how can I secure myself so that I can have security within my perimeter. And you can't blame them for, not wanting to think the same way you do. It's just because they are simply on their own journey and you can't rush through them. One of the story that I that comes to my mind is there's a farmer who had this huge open space of land, and he was planting crops. And one day he was planting the seeds, and every day he would go out to the field and check on the progress. And every day he felt very frustrated. my seed is not growing. It's growing so slow. So one day, as the spring comes, and he saw the how the seed has sprouted, in the open field, he decided, I'm gonna go and help these crops. So he decided to pull back by 1.5 inch, just a little bit to help it grow. And the next day, when he woke up, of course, all the crops were gone. And that is a story about you can rush through a lessons that you need to learn. You can rush through people who hasn't been awakened yet. It's their journey. It's their work to do. What you can do is you can be there when they need you. You can be there to support them, and perhaps through conversation, perhaps through watching you as a living example. And it is our responsibility as the awakened one. I don't particularly like to call it we're the awakened one, because I don't believe that we are any better than they are. We're still on our own journey, right? But it's your responsibility. If you see something at a different perspective, it is your responsibility to go back and help them to see things from a different perspective so they can grow with you. And that is our purpose. That is the whole idea of why we have individuals who are more awake, where we have individuals who are still on that lesson, so that we can go back to help each other out and help each other grow. So that is the whole idea of coming together as a collective.
Okay. How does how do your thoughts and beliefs fit in with the way you work with your clients?
I do approach it in a very holistic way. So I don't have a fixed agenda when I work with my client. A lot of people say, well, do you have a program for me? What do I need to do for my homework? I, Again, because every one of us are on a different path, on a different journey. So when I work with them, I basically invite them to a conversation so that I understand where they are and what is it that they are facing or struggling, so that I know how to approach it. And every individual is very different. I recently had a woman who reached out to me because she said she was procrastinating. And it's a common thing for a lot of perfectionists there, because they find themselves a procrastinator. The reason being, they want to be perfect. So there's a lot of things that's going on. They're pushing it to the side and they're not accomplishing it. It's not because they can't do it. It's because, they want to be perfect. So, those are the kind of type of clients I work with, and I invite them to a conversation. What is it that they are procrastinating, and what is the reason why they are procrastinating? And a lot of times it's that internal message that they're experiencing that causes them to focusing on just being perfect. So they take their time. But the reality is you can never be perfect. You can do and learn, right?
Mhm.
Each time you go in or dive into a task, you go and do it and you learn from it. And each time that you learn from it, you become perfect in what the task was before. So every day you're becoming perfect from the day that you were before. So I approach it in a very holistic way, and it's very individualized and customized to what the person is experiencing.
So, like you say, you don't have a specific program, but the point I'm trying to get is your beliefs about sort of reincarnation and knowing your why and being here to learn specific lessons. Do you put that into your work with your clients? So rather than saying, okay, if a client comes to you and says, right, okay, I procrastinate, I want to make 6 figures a year, do you say, okay, that may not be your why, or do you kind of follow the path that they want to go along? How does your beliefs and the idea about we're here to learn this lesson, how does that actually fit in when you take me on as a client, for example?
So one of the things that we will explore is actually your core values and your core beliefs, right? You had a set of core beliefs in what you do. So behind that core belief, there's a reason. There's your why. And again, your why is very different than mine. And your why has a reason to be there. So what is it about your why that makes you who you are? So it's really about how you are being. And during our conversation, what I'll do is we will explore the reason why you're procrastinating and the kind of person you are being a procrastinator. because a lot of times you might not realize who you truly are at the core of who you are being. So I bring the client back by asking empowering questions and exploring some of the belief that this person has shared with me. So if you share a belief with me, there's underlying things that you may not have noticed that talk about who you truly are behind all these conditions. And that brings you down to the idea of you are limitless or zero limits. You are this being of perfect potential. When you reincarnate it, you are this perfect being where you are right now. So
Hmm.
all the experiences does not define you, right? So being a procrastinator does not define you. You are a procrastinator because the society or the culture or how you grew up condition you to procrastinate. Think that you need to be perfect in order to be perfect. But in reality, put away all that beliefs and all that idea of you are a procrastinator. You are this pure natural being, just like everything else that we see in this world. And what you're experiencing is a lesson. So during that conversation, I will give them insights. I don't provide advice. I won't say to the client, hey, what do you think about the reincarnation? But ultimately, it's getting them to think about, all right, so I'm not a Buddhist, I'm Christian, so I have different set of belief that I don't believe that I will reincarnate back into this lifetime. But still, I have this set of belief that I am here for a reason. And what
Hmm.
is that reason? So it's going down to the core of who you are.
We were talking earlier on about kind of science fiction movies, and one of my favorite movies is The Matrix, where the theme is that human beings are batteries for the machines, and we are living in a dream state. And the dream state is kind of what we see outside in the real world. One of the things that I've kind of come to believe is that the Matrix is kind of true if you think of the fact that our brains are blind. Our brain takes in all this different sensory input, but we all take in different levels of sensory input. For example, if you're standing at a set of traffic lights and cars are coming and going, and you have 10 people lined up, and then two cars collide and there's an accident. If you interviewed those 10 people 1 minute, 1 hour, 1 week, 1 month, 1 year after that event, each person will give you a different version of that event, even though in theory they're all standing there looking at the same event. But in effect, we're looking at 10 separate interpretations of the same event. And I'm coming to believe that this is what goes on in life, in that some people are successful because they see opportunities and ways of, I would say, learning and growing and putting aside things like procrastination and fear of failure, fear of success, or working around them. And there are other people in that group of 10 that all they see is the procrastination, the fear of failure, fear of success, and they don't see opportunities. Does that kind of resonate with the work that you do?
Absolutely. It's all about perspectives, right? We wear different lenses to see what we see. A bottle of water is just a bottle of water, nothing more. But through our life experience, we attach a lot of different label, meaning, and names to
Mhm.
make sense of what we see. And if our mind can make sense of what we see, we will attach to our all the meaning based on our personal experience. What is my experience in the past with a bottle of water? What can I do with it? So there's a lot of personal interpretation, a lot of assumption. There's a lot of judgment that goes around of what truly is. So you use the example of a car accident, but it could be anything else, everything in this world, right? It could be a person standing in front of us. You ask 10 different people wear different lenses to see that same person, and that person, each individual 10 people will give you 10 different way of describing that same person. That same person is still the same person, but it's 10 different beliefs, interpretation. Um, I call it the gremlin, our negative self-talk, or that self-critics. It's that evil gremlin sometimes, and it's necessary for the gremlin to exist to protect us. So we each have a different own set of these four way of existing, our lenses that we wear to see the same thing. So how do we take off the lens and just seeing things for the way they are, for the way it is in this world, without any judgment? And when you do that, it opens up your doorway to opportunity, because then you start seeing things, accepting things, and you're just going with the flow of life.
Yeah, I completely agree. Perception is a huge, what's the word I'm looking for? It has a huge impact on our lives. Like you say, a person standing there, 10 people looking at that person will have 10 different views on that person based on what they had for breakfast, how they're feeling right now. Somebody, that person reminds them of maybe an article of clothing they're wearing has bad, good, or negative connotations. It's a real mixed bag. Um, what do you think is the biggest thing people can do to actually start letting go of those preconceived notions, those perceptions, so they can kind of like get all of that stuff out of the way and see, I'm not going to say see reality, but see clearer?
I think awareness is step number one. If you don't know what you don't know until you know what you don't know, right? So, so if you don't know that you're actually having all these different set of beliefs and judgment, then how can you even recognize them and therefore work on them? So if you don't know what your lesson is, think about all these changes in your life, or what are some of the repetition that you've been facing. And those are usually typically signs where you might start needing to look into them. So if you keep having a relationship problem, let's say, then there's a reason why you keep having relationship problem. So go back, and that creates self-awareness. And what is it that I am not doing? And what is it that I am doing right? Are you able to stand up for yourself in each relationship? Are you able to really share and fully express yourself in a relationship? What are some of the things that you're doing well, and what are some of the things that you can improve? Not that you did wrong, but what are some of the things that you can improve in your next relationship? So having that self-awareness is really a huge step in knowing what you need, what your next step would be. So self-awareness, I think it's number one step.
Self-awareness is a huge challenge though, because there are lots of people that are not actually self-aware. For example, you mentioned relationships. There are some people that go from relationship to relationship to relationship, and it's always the other person's fault. They've had 25 relationships in 25 years, yet they never take a step back and think, hang on a second, there must be a reason why I've had 25 relationships in 25 years. But they don't. They kind of focus on, well, this person was too tall, or this person bit their fingers, or this person wouldn't listen to me. The blame or the fault, to use a couple of words there, always lies with the other person. How can people get over that and begin to accept that self-awareness does exist, and that you really need to become self-aware in order to see how you can improve your life?
So one thing that immediately jumped into my head is your friends, your circle of your tribe. Notice, what circle are you in? When you listen to people, when you listen to your friends, who are the majority of people in your circle? And typically you'll notice that those who really truly care about you and want you to be better, they will give you the honest things that you need to hear. It may be, think about, this is your fault, it's not anyone else's fault. And those true friends, one true friend is going to tell you exactly what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. What you need to hear is this honest expression of, if your relationship is not working, it's not other people, it's how you are showing up in your relationship. So go back and think about, who are you being in your relationship? Like, what have you been doing? And that create these multiple jumping from relationship to relationship and still not working. And here you are, you're feeling stuck, you're feeling frustrated. Why is it not working? It's not because other people, it's because you are the reason. And one true friend can tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. You may want to hear, oh yeah, it's their fault, it's not, don't worry about it, the right person will come along. We all have those friends in our circle, and those are really saying these things because that's what you want to hear. So they're here to provide you with empathy. They're here to sympathize with you. But if you truly want to grow on a personal growth level, start accepting and learning how to deal with the criticisms that you are hearing, because through those criticisms are opportunity for us to grow.
Yeah, I think that's a major step in self-improvement. It's not necessarily listening to all criticism, but if you've got that true friend, is the one that, she always has her head screwed on right and she always says it how it is. That's the person that we probably don't want to listen to. But like you say, it's the one person in the world we should really be listening to, because they can kind of, I don't want to say put us on the right path, but they can lead us to start thinking about self-growth and self-development, and the fact that, yeah, actually, you're right. It's not the other 25 people in those relationships I've had over the past 25 years. There's actually one common denominator, and that's me. And I feel that once a person can recognize that they are the one common denominator, then they've actually taken a huge step forward to recognizing that there are things that they can work on and improve and change. Unfortunately, I think there are a lot of people that never get to that stage of making that first step and actually recognizing that they're always the common denominator. It's like you always hear about people that everywhere they go, everything bad happens, and they always get into arguments at the checkout, when they're paying for gas, or when they go to the bank, or this or that. They're always getting into bad situations. And I used to think, well, that's just unfortunate, but it's not. It's I think it's like, whether it's like negative energy or just the person has this aura of things always go bad for me, so I'm going to project that wherever I go. What do you think?
So I completely agree with you. There's people who's always thinking that they are the victim of their circumstances, right? So they always complain about, oh, things are not working out for me. I'll keep running into negative people and all these chaos around me. It's all me, 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 me. I'm the victim. So as we were talking about how each one of us wear a different set of lenses, there's actually 7 different ways of how we show up in this world. We can show up being the victim. We can show up having a lot of anger, resentment, and complain all the time, or blaming others, right?
Mm-hmm.
We can also show up as, someone starting to take responsibility. The reason why my life is a chaos is because I am the common denominator. I'm in the center of my universe. I am the center of my universe. So I need to start taking responsibility by finding out what is the reason why things aren't working out for me. So you can show up taking responsibility. You can also show up by having a lot of compassion to yourself and to others. Things are not working out. Perhaps the guys at the gas station is having a really bad day. So I'm going to show that person a little bit of compassion and understanding that that person had a bad day, and that's what triggered, me being the victim here, and I got yelled at. Yeah, no problem. So that's another way of showing up and having that compassionate energy. The other way that you can show up is looking at things as opportunity. All right, so the guy at the gas station is having a bad day. What would be my opportunity here? And if you are a coach, maybe you can actually talk to that person, help that person out, working through his emotion. That will be your opportunity. Looking at the pandemic, we're all trapped indoor. What are my opportunity to overcome this challenge? And how do I generate more of what works for me? Maybe spend more time with my family, maybe start working on the garden that I've been wanting to work on my garden for the longest time. This would be a great opportunity for me. And so what is the opportunity behind this pandemic here? And we can also show up having that wisdom, or having the ability to co-create by bringing in all the talents that we have, all the strength that we have, so that we can help each other. We can have collaboration, even though we're trapped indoor, we can still have a lot of collaboration. And here I am chatting with you on your podcast. That's connection. That's a collaboration. And so we can all show up in all these different ways of how we exist in this world. So we don't have to just being stuck with one set of one set of lenses to wear. We get to choose different options. How do I want to show up today? What do I want to wear today? Do I want to wear the lens of compassion? Do I want to wear the lens of anger? Maybe some days it's more appropriate. When there's violence, you might want to put on the anger lens and be angry with everyone. And so we have options to choose. We don't have to see this world with just one way and one way only.
I feel one of the biggest challenges, I mean, I completely agree with what you said. One of the biggest challenges that, for example, judging people is so easy. I read a post yesterday which reminded me of something that I used to do. This lady was saying that she was walking down the street and she deliberately was going, good morning, hi, how are you? And smiling at everyone. And she was really unhappy that the majority of the people didn't return the greeting. And I kind of replied and said, well, look, you don't know, you have no clue of what's going on in each of those people's lives. One person may have just stormed out of the house after a massive row with a significant other. One person may have been told a best friend has just died. Somebody else may have just been fired from their job or told their salary has been cut in half. Some person may have just been told they've got a incurable disease. I used to do this. I used to walk down the street and I'd smile and go, good morning. And some people would go, oh, hi, how's it going? And a few people would just ignore me, think I was a crazy person. And at first, I got quite offended by this. And then I said, hang on a minute, whoa, stop. You don't know what's going on. So, yeah, give the greeting, but don't expect anything back because you've got no clue what that particular person is going through. And the point I'm trying to make is it's so easy to do something like that, to judge people. And I trained myself to kind of like stop myself. As soon as I feel myself judging or about to place a judgment on someone, I go, oh, stop, rewind. And then I kind of like, okay, fine, yeah, they are who they are, and get on with my day. But I think that's one of the biggest challenges we face with progression and with growing as human beings, is that it's all too easy to see the negative side and to judge and to be negative. It's much more challenging when you're first starting out until it becomes easy to actually to do that rather than look for the good and the positive and to be non-judgmental.
Yeah. I think what I love about what you just said is that you at some point you say, oh, stop, I don't know what's going on in their life. And I think the challenge that a lot of people are facing is they kind of just let go of that idea of I need to pause and take a stop and take a moment and really self-reflect. As if there's a mirror in front of me. Right now I'm judging. So what is it about the other person? No, it's not about the other person. It's a mirror in front of you. It's about you. So as we're taking things personal, as we're getting offended by people's opinion, things that they said or they do, it's not really about the other person. All these information that we're receiving, it's information about us. So what is it that I need to work on? And one thing that I usually recommend, especially around the judgment, is that people keep a judgment journal. So start writing things that you are judging others. So if you are judging someone, oh, for the way that they were responding to me when I walking down the street and passing them, write that down in the journal. And when you go back, look at your journal and what is it that you are judging. You'll start seeing a pattern of how you're judging and what does that make you feel. And I think that's really important to go down to what is it that I am feeling afterwards. If I'm judging someone, how does that make me feel? Probably not very good. It just probably just ruin my whole day, right? But what if you're going down the street, non-judgmental way, you just continue to say hi and greet everybody as you meet them on the street. And if they reply with a smile, with a greeting, that's great. That's fabulous. But if they don't, that no harm done. And you're not judging it. How does that sound for you? How does that make you feel? How would that change how you're feeling for the rest of the day? So I recommend people to keep a judgment journal, start keeping track of where you are judging and how you are judging, whether it's yourself or others, and how does that make you feel? And once you start recognizing your thoughts create your emotion becomes your behavior, then you have a way of coming up with how to overcome these judgments.
I like the idea of a judgment journal. It's kind of completely the opposite to a gratitude journal, for example. But yeah, I can see the benefit because, as you say, you start identifying patterns, and if you take the time to reflect, then it could well be something within your own self that you're judging, rather than and then you're kind of like projecting that onto other people. I think it's a really good idea.
So the hidden uh, uh, benefit of keeping a judgment journal is once you start recognizing your pattern, your gratitude journal is just going to be filled very quickly because then you have all these things that you can be grateful for without your judgment. So I recommend keeping both, gratitude journal for the morning and judgment journal for night, and list all the things that you've been judging all day. And you go back and think about what is it that you appreciate in your life and how would you be able to show up in a more compassionate way to everybody.
Um, you mentioned earlier that, in your view, being more self-aware was one major step to helping a person sort of learn and grow and become better with a small b. Do you have any other thoughts around what people need to be thinking and doing so they can learn to grow and become I can't think of a different word to better, but an improved person. Let's use that word instead.
I would recommend to get into conversations or listen to podcasts and listening to any personal development podcasts or lessons or webinars. It's a great way to get you to start thinking. And it is through those conversations that we learn about the other person and we
Mhm.
also learn more about ourselves. I wonder, that guest has said something about this judgment. I wonder how I judge, So through conversation, you start thinking, you do a lot of thinking. And by meeting like minded people or connecting with your friends who share the same interests or hobby, you get into conversation with them and talk about not just the little things, in life, but more of a deeper meaning, understanding. When you're meeting people on the street, if you have time sitting in a public transportation, sitting on the bus, sitting in the train station, talk to the person sitting next to you. Get to know that person, not just hi, hello. Get to know that person a little better. Maybe you see that person every single day. And through your conversation, you're going to learn so much about yourself, more so than you learn about the other person.
Yeah, I think the art of conversation is a dying art. 'Cause if you go way back in time to kind of like the Greek philosophers, there are lots of paintings of the philosophers in market squares and in the equivalent of cafes sitting around and having conversations and discussings and really in-depth kind of subjects. Whereas we tend to have conversations about the weather, about what we watched on TV last night, and what we're having for dinner tonight, that kind of thing. It would be great if we could figure out a way of getting people to have those more, like you say, in-depth conversations. I think it'd be a much, it'd be an improvement, and people would learn and grow and, appreciate people more if we could have these in-depth conversations.
It's so true, but then I also think, this go back to the internet, the benefit of internet, the benefit of being able to connect with all kinds of people from all over the world. You're able to connect through virtual world. There's a lot of free events right now, online virtually. You can go join a group that you like. You can look up event. There's free event everywhere. Maybe you like vision board, creating vision board to be in January to, new year, new vision board. So look into where can I find free event that I can meet these people. And through these people, if you do it often enough, you start to get a group together and you find you form your own tribe, right? And a lot of reason why we're unable to have those meaningful, deep conversation, again, is going back to that judgment. I don't want to be seen as like a weirdo sitting on the subway train station and talking to an individual. But guess what? Back in the old day, no one is judging. We don't have the cell phone or devices or all these distractions. We're sitting there and either we're reading a book or we're having a conversation. We're enjoying the conversation. No one is judging. No one cares. And no one's watching you. So it's all about that self-judgment and judgment of you having on another person. So let go of that judgment. You don't need that. So next time you sit on a train station, talk to that person that's sitting next to you that you've been seeing for months and months. That person is probably having the same idea as you do. Oh, I don't want to go talk to that person. I don't want to be seen as a weirdo.
You mentioned kind of like attending free events and learning new things via these events and such like. Are you running anything like that at the moment? Do you do this kind of thing? Do you get people together?
Yes, I do get people together. So I have a book club. Currently, it's only for women. It's a women's book club. I invite everyone to come and join me every month, and we pick a book. Typically, it's a personal development book, and we read the book, get back together. We have a little discussion, what the book has impact on our personal life. So I invite women to join and participate in those groups. I have other groups that are more co-ed, and people can always follow me on Facebook, and I have a group that's going, and people are free to post comments, and a lot of time I share daily posts and people engage me that way. And occasionally I would have like monthly events that I invite people to come have a conversation.
Wow. Are you running anything specific at the moment? Have you got any courses happening or anything starting in the near future?
Yeah, I'm running a mastermind group that will cultivate our true self, our authentic true self. So again, it has to do with letting go of our judgment, and we're going back to really speaking and being who we are. I call it to get real mastermind, because you can be rocking and really achieving being successful in a lot of areas in your life, but if you are not getting real with yourself, with others, there's a disconnection that you're feeling inside of you. So I have this mastermind group. The first session is going to go live on the 20th of January, and this is where I invite the people, like-minded people, to come together so that we can cultivate that sense of authenticity.
Brilliant. So, look, before I close, a couple of questions which are kind of becoming standard now-ish, sort of. The first one is, now I'm guessing I might know the answer to this. If you could go back 10, 20 years and tell your younger self something, A, would you? And B, if the answer is yes, what would you actually tell your younger self?
I would go back and tell myself, trust the process. I wouldn't want to change anything right now, and just trust the process. It's your journey, and you will learn from this journey. So just trust the process.
Brilliant. That trust the process. Absolutely right. And final question, what personal development book are you reading right now?
Right now it's a fiction book. But I want to comment on my previous book, which is from Melinda Gates. So she is the wife of Bill Gates. So she wrote a book. It's called The Moment of Lift, Lift, The Moment of Lift. And it's about empowering women to step into their truth. And that book is really inspirational, and it really resonated deep within my heart, because one of my goals is to create that sustainable society. And a lot of what she had talked about in the book focus on the sustainable society that we can all create. Whether you're a man, woman, this is our power. So we need to step into it.
Sounds like one I need to put on my list. So to end, where is the main place people can reach you, Michelle?
People can find me on my Facebook. I am at facebook.com Life Coaching by Elevate, or they can send me they can follow me on Instagram at Elevate Life Coach.
Brilliant. Listen, I've really had an interesting conversation with you today. It's gone on a completely different track to what I anticipated, but that makes it all the more fun. Thank you so much for your time, Michelle. I really appreciate it.
And thank you so much for having me.
I'll speak to you very soon. Bye now.